What is a class scheduling system?
Class scheduling system is essentially assigning a particular time slot and a classroom to a particular course or section. So let's say again there are multiple variants to this problem, right? In many business schools and universities, they follow a weekly pattern, which means there is a timetable that is kind of generated for a week, which gets repeated for the entire semester or a trimester. So again, how do we do scheduling? Depending on the credits of the course. Some courses could be 3 credit courses, some courses could be 2 credit courses, some courses could be 4 credit courses. So if it's a 3 credit course, maybe 3 hours needs to be scheduled. If it's a 4 credit course, 4 hours needs to be scheduled, etc. So depending on the credits of the course, as well as faculty preferences, as well as any constraints involved, timetable is prepared. That's a weekly pattern. And then that weekly pattern is repeated for the entire duration of the trimester or a semester. This is one thing. When it comes to universities, it's a lot more complex in the sense a university typical course offering has a lecture component, tutorial component, and practical component. Lecture happens in classrooms, tutorials happen maybe a smaller one, smaller groups, and then practicals might happen in labs. This makes the problem even more challenging, essentially. So that's this is another variant. And third variant is elective timetable. Elective timetable is a different kind of a problem. Here it is not just assigning a time slot to a course and assigning a time slot and classroom to a course. It's also deciding which student goes to which section of the course. A course may have multiple sections. Which student goes to which section of the course also needs to be determined by the scheduling system. This is the third variant of the system.
So, what makes this a hard problem?
So why is class scheduling is very hard is because first there are no standard algorithms to kind of prepare a timetable. It's a very hard. It's an NP hard problem. Solution space is also very big. Secondly, there are a lot of constraints involved in schedule preparation. It could be faculty availability, classroom availability. Sometimes faculty have preferences saying I'm coming from a very long distance in the morning. I can't stay till the evening. In that case, you need to kind of do the allocation with very little gap. So there are a lot of constraints involved. Sometimes female faculty are involved. They can't have sessions after 7 p.m. So there are a lot of constraints involved. I mean, in the business schools that we work with, close to around a lot of business schools are there where we have close to like 20 constraints in the timetable preparation. Again, so there are multiple variants of this problem also, right? Let's take an example for a business school, especially in a typical MBA program, second year, or where maybe it could be 1 year program also, where there are some semesters there are only elective courses are involved. There, the challenge in timetable scheduling is you need to kind of schedule for courses that have different kinds of enrollments because it is elective. So you need to take into account both the faculty preferences as well as the student distribution. So it is essentially not just assigning a time slot and a classroom to a particular section. It's also determining who would be part of that section, because so it's not only assigning a particular classroom and a time slot to a section, it is also determining which students will be part of that particular section. This is one variant of the problem wherein we are scheduling for electives. If you are scheduling for core courses, typically in a lot of business schools, are universities also, there are a lot of programs which are involved, essentially, right? We know, and there are faculty preferences, classroom constraints. We need to also take into account the distance and the time it takes for the faculty to move from one particular classroom to other particular classroom, etc. So there is a core timetable preparation. This is more of what are the available or what are the schedulable slots for a particular course, and then we should kind of take into account the various constraints that are involved. This is like the core timetable preparation, and then there's an elective timetable preparation. So both of them have their own set of challenges involved, which in the core timetable preparation, maybe student distribution challenge is not there, but in the elective timetable preparation, there is a student distribution problem also, which is there.
How can edtechs help a university or a business school in implementing a scheduling system?
Sure. So, EdTech started working on this timetable scheduling problem since 2018. It started in I am Bangalore. I'm Bangalore after successfully implementing course bidding system. Professor Abhay Oja, who was the dean at that time, wanted to solve this timetable scheduling problem also. This is mainly for, to be honest, elective timetable scheduling. So again, the objective there was to kind of create a schedule which is minimal clashes or zero clashes. Again, again, in some business schools, they prepare the schedule for electives before the bidding starts. In some cases, they prepare the elective schedule after the bidding. So in cases like I'm Ahmedabad, I'm Bangalore, I'm Calcutta, we do the timetable scheduling before the bidding starts. In cases where I am Lucknow and few other business schools, where we kind of prepare the schedule after the bidding ends. I mean, it's even more challenging because, as I was mentioning, there is a student distribution problem involved, not just about assigning a time slot and a classroom. There is also a student assignment problem that we need to kind of solve, which makes this a hard problem. The way we solve it is we try to understand what is the current process that the business school or the university has currently. Again, this is in the discovery phase. We try to understand what kind of constraints are there. edX has developed a lot of proprietary algorithms over the last 8 year journey that can solve various variants of the timetable scheduling problem. So we try to see, which variant works better. We also kind of provide advice and recommendations to the business school and university. Usually, we felt the process itself outside the system is not very streamlined in many business schools. We also try to streamline that particular process. So recently, we are kind of solving this problem at I'm Kozhikode, where there are like 7 programs involved.
Can you walk us through the full cycle of timetable preparation at a large business school or university?
Sure. So yeah, timetable preparation starts much earlier than when a semester or a trimester starts. Maybe it could be like even 90 days in advance, sometimes 30 days in advance, etc. So how does this work out, right? So first, the program office prepares the data, required data, like classroom data, what are the courses that are being offered, which classrooms are available, what is the faculty availability like, etc. Sometimes in some cases we take this information from the faculty in terms of their availability. Are they going for any conferences during this particular trimester, etc. So that is what we kind of do. Post that, we also take faculty preferences. Faculty preferences in the sense, if it's a weekly timetable that we are preparing, so we ask faculty which days of the week you're comfortable taking classes. Look, they may say, Monday first off, Tuesday first off. They can select particular time slots also on the system, right? So that is one. That's the second input. Third is the constraints. So what are the kind of constraints that are there? Maybe in the initial implementation constraints, there may be a lot of constraints that might change extra. In the subsequent iterations, essentially, how program office or office of academic affairs usually do it is, they input all the data and then constraints, and they prepare and they kind of generate the first version of the timetable using edX timetable automation system. They may kind of want to kind of do some iterations. They may share it with the faculty can come back with some feedback, and then they try to incorporate that feedback. And once the timetable, weekly timetable is frozen, then the term timetable or a semester timetable is prepared, which means the weekly timetable being replicated to every week of a semester or a trimester. And when we do that, let us say, for instance, there are two Tuesdays which are holidays in a particular trimester, and then there will be deficit sessions. Out of 20 sessions, only maybe 18 sessions got scheduled. There are two are not scheduled. Again, to fill this gap, also it takes timetable automation system helps them in filling this particular gap. Essentially, once that is done, once the semester timetable is also frozen, a calendar invitations are sent to both the faculty and the students. This timetable goes and sits directly in the faculty's calendar or students' calendar, and subsequently during the term, during the trimester or semester, essentially what happens is there could be some reschedules that may happen or cancellations that may happen. Again, as soon as program office does these changes on the system, it will automatically kind of gets reflected on the calendar, and then there are WhatsApp notifications also which are sent to kind of notify the faculty or students about any specific changes. So this is how the entire life cycle. So first, it starts with the data preparation. faculty preferences, and then the constraints, which constraints needs to be kind of enforced, and there's some iterations of the weekly timetable in case weekly timetable is there, and then there is a semester timetable or a term timetable, and understanding the deficits and filling those deficits, and finally calendar invitations are sent, and subsequent, in case there are any changes, WhatsApp notifications are being sent. This is a quick summary of what happens in the timetable generation.
How does the scheduling work when there are multiple programs or student batches?
Sure. When there are multiple programs involved, now faculty is not just teaching one program, they're teaching multiple programs. We need to understand, when is a particular faculty available. See, most of the programs work in silos. That's what we have kind of noticed from our experience. Like, there could be a regular MBA program which is kind of preparing its own schedule. They're really not aware of what is happening in other program offices, right? That's a big challenge. And then where is the faculty, whether the faculty is available or not, is not clearly known. Because of which, these program officers also have to kind of go back to faculty multiple times when they're teaching in multiple programs so when there are multiple programs, what is very essentially important is when there is an initial generation itself, whenever the timetable is initially generated, it is important to kind of consider whether the faculty is kind of occupied in any other program during that time. And after the initial generation, maybe after the even the term timetable is generated for the entire term or semester, right? System also highlights if there are any kind of clashes that kind of are happening because of the faculty teaching in various programs, etc. And most importantly, when there is a reschedule that needs to happen, now program officers are clearly aware whether the faculty is available or not only in one program, right, across various programs. So that way, it is slightly complicated, and basically it also makes the life harder for program office as the number of programs increase. But it takes timetable automation system is equipped to kind of handle multiple programs. We are kind of doing this. We have done this at IIM Bangalore already. We are also doing this at IIM Kozhikode uh, very recently.
When does a university or a business school know that they need to go for a new timetable scheduling system?
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, when as the institution scales, the number of students increase, number of course offerings increase, number of program offerings increase. So in that kind of a scenario, now what happens is there will be multiple program offices which may not be coordinated. The amount of time that is spent by the person who is managing the timetable suddenly starts increasing. First, the initial timetable generation itself will take several weeks, and later on when they have to reschedule, it takes like maybe going through multiple Excel sheets, or like on paper they have to check for clashes, etc. In case you are kind of facing these kind of challenges, maybe you'll have to relook at the timetabling system. Maybe you can kind of talk to us. We can kind of do a free audit of your process to kind of see what kind of improvements that can kind of happen in your current system.
So, how does the system help the program officers?
Yes. So it helps the program officers from the very beginning, in the sense the initial timetable generation, which we typically see is several weeks exercise, can happen in a few hours using an automated timetable system. That's number one. Number two is change management will become very, very easy now, because now all the information is in the system. If you have to reschedule a particular class, if you have to reschedule a particular session, the faculty availability across various programs in the system, and it becomes lot more simpler. Let's say, for instance, a faculty member called the person who is managing the schedule on the telephone itself. You kind of get to know what are the slots that are available, to which slot it can be rescheduled in the system. We also have a provision where faculty can request rescheduling a session through the portal, and they get to know which time slots could be can be kind of this session be rescheduled to, because it checks when all the students are available. It also checks for other things, other availability things, when the reschedule is happening. And also, not just in initial timetable generation and change management, it also helps the program officers in communication. This is a very important thing. It's not about just timetabling change, right? All the stakeholders needs to be communicated about this change. So for that, edtechs introduced WhatsApp based notifications, direct integration with calendar. The moment students now see the calendar, from the time the session got rescheduled to getting it reflected in the calendar would take less than a minute. And even the WhatsApp notification will go instantaneously to both the students as well as the faculty members.
Can you speak about some of your case studies in business schools, law schools, and universities?
Sure. So I'll start with the first variant, which is elective timetable preparation, which happens in many of the business schools, essentially. So we have done this at IIM Bangalore, IIM Calcutta, IIM Kozhikode, IIM Lucknow, etc. Again, some of them prepare the timetable or class schedule before the bidding. Some of them kind of prepare after the bidding, essentially. So I'll start with IIM Bangalore itself. So in IIM Bangalore, we have specific group of slots. So there are, let's say, total maybe 30 slots are available in a week for electives, right? So we have kind of prepared 15 different combinations out of those 30 slots. One of the combination is a back-to-back combination. Maybe an elective course can be taught only back-to-back, maybe because of the nature of the course, etc. That particular faculty member can choose that particular slot, right? And there are total 15 combinations that are there. So faculty members have to choose at least three as preferences, because if they choose only one, it cannot be given by the system, because system not just is optimizing for faculty preference, it's also optimizing for student preference. How is the student demand across various electives, right? That's the next step, essentially, which is the faculty preference collection. Once that is done, we have in-house proprietary algorithms which generate the schedule in a least clashing manner, essentially. So that's the IIM Bangalore. Similarly, even at IIM Kozhikode, we have implemented similar system and other elective bidding cases also. And another case study that I want to talk about is Tapme Bengaluru. In Tapme Bengaluru reached out to us almost an year ago. They were kind of preparing the entire schedule on Excel sheet. It is a lot more chaotic. Like, broadcasting this information was very difficult. Now we digitized that entire timetable exercise. Not just digitizing the timetable, we have also kind of ensured that the generation itself happens through the system. um, and looking at the success of Tapmi Bengaluru, even Tapmi Manipal reached out to us. Tapmi Manipal had a lot more different kinds of constraints, etc. Essentially, they were not preparing the weekly timetable, they were directly preparing the entire semester timetable. They have different kinds of constraints. So we have solved that problem using some of our in house algorithms. Another thing that I want to talk about is KJ Somaya. KG Sumaya was also like, very difficult problem for us. There are multiple programs involved. The batch sizes were high. The number of sections they had for each of the programs are high. So again, the constraints were very different. It is a city campus. Faculty come from faraway places. Let's say faculty is coming from a very faraway place. We can't kind of keep the faculty, wait between the sessions. We need to kind of ensure that, their sessions are scheduled as closely as possible. And see, when we kind of go into the core timetable scheduling also, especially city campuses, etc., we also need to ensure that students or a student schedule is properly optimized, essentially. So that is something that's also very important consideration when we are kind of preparing the timetable.
What are the user expectations with regards to AI in academic operations systems and timetable automation?
Okay, very interesting question. I think this has been. I think this expectation came because after we started using products like ChatGPT or Claude, etc. Now, users want to speak to the timetable. Ask for change recommendations, etc. Let's say, for instance, if faculty is kind of asking a session to be rescheduled, right? What are the combinations available? Which other faculty would be impacted? So if it is a simple check in the sense like, which other slots are available, we really do not need AI. But if it is about, understanding what are the various possibilities, what are the what if conditions that needs to be checked, etc. So we have essentially built an internal agent, AI based assistant, that you can use to kind of speak to the timetable, ask for what kind of changes can be done, what kind of swaps can be done in the timetable. So that is one solution that some of our customers were expecting, and we have kind of recently delivered it.
So, what happens when there are changes or cancellations after the timetable has been created?
See, how much ever we try, there are always last minute changes, right? Faculty may become sick, etc. So what institutes try to do is they don't want to get that slot being wasted. They immediately try to kind of fill that up with any other, maybe sometimes any other course, or if not a session, maybe something useful for the students in terms of some training, etc. But one thing is important. One is, when we are canceling, we need to kind of send this information to the students as quickly as possible. And then comes the rescheduling part, to which other time slot should we reschedule this particular session. And at that time, again, we need to consider the classroom availability and other constraints. Like we need to kind of take into account faculty load, student load on that particular day.
How much time does it take to deploy a timetable scheduling platform at an institute?
It takes, we have seen on an average, it takes about 4 weeks for us to kind of do the entire discovery and then, deploy the solution. We have recently done that for I'm Cozy Code for 7 different programs. Actually, we took some time in discovering what are the various, patterns that they have for various programs, etc. But usually it takes about 4 weeks is a good time. But if the complexity is too high, then it might take slightly longer.
How can answer engines help in timetable scheduling and management?
Yes, answer engines can help in the way that, as I was mentioning earlier, people want a system to kind of talk to the timetable, right? In the sense, um, so let us take an example, right? How is the faculty load for a particular week, or timetable involves both hard constraints and soft constraints. Hard constraints anyways cannot be broken, so whatever the timetable that is generated from the system cannot break hard constraints. In case there are any manual overrides that happen on the timetable, if there is any hard constraint that is broken, again through the answer engine you can ask if there are any hard constraints that are broken, right? In terms of soft constraints, which could be like, student load. A student cannot have more than 3 sessions a day. In how many instances, for how many students did we really break this particular constraint, right? You can ask such questions. You can, you understand, I mean, it's timetable. Based on the timetable, both faculty are involved, students are involved, any analytics about the faculty or the student can be kind of answered through an answer engine.
How does the system ensure that there are no clashes between classes, faculty, or student batches?
Yes, when we kind of build the timetable scheduling system, there are certain hard constraints that it cannot break. A student cannot be in 2 sessions at the same time. A faculty cannot be in 2 sessions at the same time. Again, a classroom cannot have 2 sessions at the same time. So, how the system ensures is, even so first, during its generation or change management, system does not allow if any of these constraints are broken. Even by mistake, somebody has done it, etc., system flags it immediately on its real time semester timetable or a trimester timetable.
What do you think are the most common challenges program offices face while managing and generating timetables?
Yes, I feel this process of timetable is not very streamlined. In many cases, we have kind of see. I think the kind of maturity that we have seen with other academic processes like grading or course feedback, etc., with timetable and schedule generation, it is not so much streamlined. So I think there is a lot of opportunity in terms of streamlining the process, in terms of collecting the inputs from various sources, collecting the preferences from the faculty. There's a lot of streamlining that can be done, and as well as the initial generation. Otherwise, there is a lot of, I think the person who is managing the timetable is, it's like one of the very difficult roles within the program office. Actually, I mean, there's a very high chance that the person get burn out easily, essentially. So those are the challenges. Even in the rescheduling part, things are not very streamlined. People still kind of check multiple Excel sheets or like on paper, trying to kind of understand the clashes, etc. And then communication is the third part, right? Even that is not very streamlined. Classes get rescheduled, but the required participants don't know that, there is a reschedule that happened. So these are the challenges, right? One is collection of inputs itself. Second is generation of the initial timetable, and then, subsequent management as well as communication. These are the four areas we see. There's a lot of scope for improvement for many of the business schools.